Hey, folks, if you're joining us through the live stream or watching this recording later, it is September the 28th, and today we are talking about chapter 32, which is the last chapter that we're going to have right now over Islam and the changes it's going to have throughout the Middle East and North Africa. And the terms on the board are agriculture, commerce, science, literature, and education, architecture, women, and slavery. And so, giving the kids here a minute to discuss these terms with one another. Also, on Thursday, we're going to have a quiz over 3 Quizlet sets that I'm going to post on the Google Classroom after the lecture. And it's going to be over the set for 24 and 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So you want to go ahead and make sure you study those before Thursday so that, you make a good grade and all that. Let's see. All right, kids, you got about 40 seconds left. Share your table, Robert. Is that about it, Hunter? Are you sure?
Yes.
Did you read between the lines, upside down, inside out?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. That's going to be time. Let's see what images I have for today. If you recall, the caliphate is going to spread over time through various means of diplomacy and conquest and conversion. So here, again, I think I showed you this picture last time. This is the famous Library of Baghdad, a very famous center of learning and literature. The Muslims are going to be very good in preserving a lot of what we call classical Greek and Roman literature, especially in regards to philosophy and what we would call the natural sciences, like biology, even mathematics and things like that. Because a lot of the world that they are going to be in charge of is going to be where it used to be like ancient Greeks and Romans. Like, remember, Egypt used to have the Library of Alexandria. A lot of the parts of the Eastern Roman Empire used to be like old Greek. So, it'll be very famous for things such as artwork. Remember, a lot of it's geometry based because images of people or even animals could be seen as idolatry. So a lot of it's going to be geometric patterns, a lot of floral looking designs and things like that. Famous for its rugs, its tile work on buildings, and things of that nature. The cities had open air markets known as bazaars. And there's some places in the Middle East today you can go to and still find these open air markets and bazaars. I went to one once in a country called Tunisia. And yeah, you got a lot of merchants there with like their stands, and they come up and they're trying to sell you stuff. And when they give you, when you want to buy something, they give you a price, and you have to haggle with them. Like they say, hey, I want to sell this to you for $10. You're like, no, $10 is too much. How about $5? And you're like, oh, I can't do $5. How about $9? And you're like going back and forth until you agree on the price in the middle, So it's still kind of like that today. So nothing's set in stone. Selling all kinds of stuff. This is another picture from. Now the thing is the ban on drawing people is going to be not totally universal. In what we would call ancient Persia, today Iran, they still painted images of humans. In India, a lot of the Muslims there will still paint images of people. But most of Islam, such as like in Arabia and North Africa, it's going to be completely banned, right? So Gosh, what was the name of this? This is a really famous mosque. I forgot the name of it. I think I got it in the thing below.
Is that the one in Israel?
It's called the Dome of the Rock.
That's the one in Israel.
Big rock, then it's a dome.
No.
But again, this is an example of the architecture. See, they kept the Byzantine domes, and here you see all this tile work with like geometric designs, colors, things like that.
Was that from the Romans?
From the Byzantine Romans, the Greek ones. So they also in the Middle Ages in Europe, they couldn't build arches like this. You had to have a basic understanding of engineering to be able to make an arch that's able to withstand a certain amount of pressure coming down so the thing doesn't collapse in the middle. They still have good stonework for carving pillars and things like that, whereas in the Middle Ages, a lot of these skills have been lost.
So let's say like.
Yeah.
It's called the Dome of the Rock. Does that mean there's a shrine of the rock in it? Maybe.
I mean,
Oh, that guy? Oh, yeah. I don't think Dwayne Johnson's in there, so. Yeah, sorry. This is from the Great Mosque of Cordoba in Spain. If you remember, they're going to take over almost all of Spain. Now, all of Spain is not going to convert to Islam. There's still going to be a lot of Christians and Jewish people there. But it's just an example of how, like, you see all these arches in here, and all these columns it's distributing the weight, so the building can be very large, made of heavy material.
Wow.
So all through there.
Kind of looks like Egyptian almost.
Yeah, I can see that, especially with like the stripes. I could definitely see that. Like it kind of makes me think of like a pharaonic crown. So a bit about the slave trade in Islam. Yeah, they essentially took over what was already there. Africa, much like the rest of the world, such as places like Russia and all throughout the world, really, you had slave networks, which were not only just people, but also like things that could, like precious stones, stuff like that could only be found in Africa, were brought up across the Sahara Desert, up north, back and forth. It's going to be these same networks that Europeans are going to come in, and they're already going to be established, and they're going to take over those. And so this is a very ancient system, and pretty much it was like if people had a war, the people who lost the war, like the soldiers, would be enslaved. Remember the ancient Romans used to do the same thing. Greeks would do the same thing as well, if you remember from last year. And so here we find it's a common thing throughout societies. The Aztecs did it. I mean, it was all over the world. So Muslims, however, could not enslave fellow Muslims. So they preferred to import people from sub-Saharan Africa because most of them weren't Muslim. So they thought it was okay. And we'll see that later on, the Spanish and the Portuguese will do the same thing because they're not supposed to enslave Christians. So it's always that there's always an element of you always find an element in societies where they prefer not to put people in bondage who are like themselves. It's always like that. Like the Aztecs, for example. Aztecs did not prefer to enslave fellow Aztecs. They would go raid other villages, like Mayan villages, and take Mayans. All right. So on that note, let's talk a little bit about agriculture, which is from our Latin word agricultus. What's agar mean? What's an agar?
Farmer.
A what?
Farmer.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the cultivation of a farm. So, what we got, guys? What did we learn about farming?
They had irrigation and rotational crops.
Yeah, irrigation. A lot of these places, this is going to be something that they're going to take from from places such as Egypt, where, in Egypt it would flood. The Nile would flood regularly, bringing in good soil. But then they would have to bring in water back into places, so they dug canals. And canals make for irrigation, so they were good at using what little water they had. There's some irrigation canals in the Middle East that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and families inherit it, and it's already there. Farms already.
They had a good system of irrigation.
And you said rotation of crops?
Yes, they practice rotation of crops. They employ fertilizers. They understood how to graft and produce new varieties of plants and fruits.
There you go. Well, here, let's stop there real quick. So rotation of crops, this is important because, a lot of crops are seasonal. You can't grow them year round. And some crops will deplete the soil. They will absorb nutrients such as nitrogen, something plants need to grow. But some plants will actually put nitrogen back in the soil. Europeans aren't going to learn this for hundreds of years until they start figuring out if they plant things like clovers in their fields. It's going to make the field healthy again for to grow wheat or barley or something like that again. So they're really ahead of the game here. And fertilizers. This isn't anything too new. Most farming people know that you have to bring in animal manure and stuff like that. If you bring it to your field, the plants grow better. Grafting is where you take a plant and you make a cut and you can put the branch of another plant on it so it'll grow that extra branch. So like an example, having say lemons grow on an orange tree or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty crafty. And they also do cross-pollinating to come up with new kinds of plants to bring out different features, kind of like dog breeding. And what else did you have?
The Western sea, cotton, flax, hemp, buckwheat, rice, sugarcane, and coffee from Muslims.
Yeah, so cotton, sugar,
Can't forget that.
flax, yeah, and tobacco, but Europeans did not like Arabic tobacco. They thought it was too strong. But they will like Native American tobacco. But so see, this part here, cotton. Yeah, back to Egypt, they were really good at growing cotton. And in fact, during the American Civil War, that's going to be important because the South is going to expect England to buy our cotton down here in the South. But England's going to be forget you guys. We're going to buy it from Egypt instead. And so that's one of the reasons why the Confederacy had almost no money. So just a little FYI.
And they have vegetables and fruit.
Yeah, lots of vegetables and fruits. And like you said, melons, that's really important because melons are also a source of water that you can transport, and sugar, which is important when you're dehydrated. That's one of the reasons why watermelon's so big here in the South. Before air conditioning, watermelons happen to just ripen and get ready right when it gets the hottest and when you really need it the most. Same like cantaloupes and stuff. Good job, guys. All right, so next one. What about commerce? What about that commerce?
They traded with India, China, and the East Indies.
Yeah, some big trade networks. India, China, and Europeans had heard of these places, but they were almost fictional to them. And East Indies, think about those are like Easter, Pacific Island kind of. Well, think of Indonesia and stuff like that. Kind of hard to. I need a map. But the cool thing is about East Indies is this is going to have things like spices. These are going to have things like spices and stuff like that, like cinnamon and black pepper and other things that Europeans are going to buy for. It's going to be so expensive that basically only kings and queens can afford it. So super expensive. And the Arabs are the only people who are able to sell it to the Europeans. So they're getting filthy rich off of this. Hey, what else you got?
It also kept many people from slavery.
What do you mean?
I read it somewhere else apparently, that isn't a part of it. I thought it said that it kept many people from slavery because they could go off trading instead of working in the fields gathering.
Okay, yeah, that was a good source of income, trading, yeah, and have you out traveling, away from trouble. So, what about manufacturing? What kind of stuff are they making? Is there anything there about like glass or
Not from what I read.
tapestries? So what?
They make certain types of blades.
Blades, yeah, like
I can't remember the exact blade.
Damascus was famous for its swords and
I
stuff.
mean leather.
Leather. Okay. Well, here I'll help you out. So created you're going to glass tapestries. I'm spelling all over the place.
And they made crystal and glass plates.
There you go. Eventually, they're going to have an early run on gunpowder and stuff like that. Not quite yet.
They
They're
also knew the secrets of dyeing and making in a kind of paper.
That's right. Dye and paper. And the thing is, they're going to learn how to make paper from the Chinese. Then they're going to start using it, and eventually Europeans are going to start using it for the printing press. And it's going to be another way that's going to make books so cheap and readily available. Instead of having to rely on things like vellum or papyrus, which was already in extremely short supply by them. So yeah, that's going to be super helpful for the rest of the world. Cool. All right. Good job, guys. All right, so science, literature, and education. Education. I've heard of it. You could also like take it to mean like philosophy, mathematics.
I just summed
Yeah,
it, just
so
say education.
They were
considered the founders of experimental science, of modern experimental science.
Okay. I think Sir Isaac Newton would disagree, but okay. So,
That's what books say.
They were skillful chemists.
okay. Early form of
That is only what books say.
experimentation.
Founders of experimental science.
And what were you saying, Robert?
They were skillful chemists.
Yeah, so chemistry. What else? Just anything here about mathematics? Like where do we get?
Well, they used
What was your ninth grade math?
algebra.
Algebra. Who made algebra?
Mine was out.
Who?
Arabic. Or Arabs.
Yeah, so they're going to invent algebra. And it's actually going to be named created algebra, which is actually going to be named after the inventor.
I'm guessing their last or first name was algebra.
Well, the thing is, like, if I remember, I think Al means son of, so it'd be like that'd be like his last name, like son of Deborah or something like that.
Son of Deborah.
Son of Deborah, yeah. So create algebra, other advances in math.
Algebra.
Yeah. What's up? What did the nurse tell us to do? Yeah. If you want to go get some tissue, get some. You want some? You want some of these? Okay. So there you go. Hey, all right. In math, what about literature? What did it say about like literature? and like Europeans can be, and eventually us, we're going to be happy about that. Wasn't it a guy who was the student of Plato? The teacher of Alexander the Great.
I can't pronounce his name, but I found it.
What, Aristotle? Yeah, so they help preserve works of Aristotle. And yeah, so of course they have their period of poetry and things like that. But yeah, so here, it goes back to the hand like we were saying earlier. Let's see, they're going to preserve classical philosophy.
I have a question. Why is this dude just literally putting letters inside of numbers? By invitation.
I don't know.
What kind of drugs were people supposed
It's not that. They're just trying to figure out a way to make a problem where if you know some things but not everything, where you can just plug it in. Why letters? I don't know. But hey, all right. So we're gonna. But did y'all see anything about education, guys? Last one. We'll just send it with all of this ties to education. We had thought for all this. Remember, literacy was high. They're teaching kids Arabic, how to read it and stuff like that. But also a lot of people were learning mathematics and stuff like that. So, all right, let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Architecture. She's looking at you, Zoe. I think she's trying to like say something.
I said they just invented building tall things.
What?
That's really all it says. It's just arches and art and all that stuff.
Well, they could still do those things. They kept that. They didn't forget how to build. So yeah, they could build. I'm sorry. What'd you say again?
Arches and
Arches
yeah.
and what?
It says they introduced the pointed arch into Europe.
Okay, and pointed arches. Ooh, okay. So I guess that's a big deal. Anything else, Zoe? That you caught? So she has some good stuff. Anything about like design? I didn't give y'all a big one. I gave y'all a small one. So what? There we go. So yeah, so just like she said, yeah, so which means they also had domes. And yeah, they're going to adopt it by Byzantium. All right, so this next one should be awesome because we had three powerful minds working on this. It's like our space program.
All
right. So we're talking about some of the things that changed in regard to the local population's view and practice regarding how they treated women and slaves. So first, the women's. So what we got?
So
Okay.
they believed in polygamy, but they
Okay.
were only limited to 4 wives.
Okay, so polygamous. What's polygamy mean?
They have multiple wives.
Okay,
It
so
is a harem, which is a part of the house.
up to 4 wives. Yeah, harems are going to come a bit more later. Like the Ottomans were famous for that. So that'd be like the super rich guys would have the harems. So a lot of this had to do why up to 4. A lot of it had to do with financial reasons. So that they're like, hey, nobody can take care of more than essentially 4 families. So like as far as time and cash. Now, the thing is about polygamy, a lot of civilizations did polygamy because men died all the time. You go die off hunting, herding the sheep. When you were a shepherd back then, you weren't like an idyllic like little boy with a stick walking your sheep. You're like out there trying to fight off bandits and lions. So they died all the time. Of course, not to mention warfare. And so widows were often left with just them and their kids. And in those kind of societies, they didn't have a way to make cash. So often polygamists were actually marrying like their brother's widow, and stuff like that. So they had social reasons they did it for protection. Though, yeah, sometimes they were just guys wanted more than one wife. So up to 4. Anything else about women?
I don't remember anything else about the women, but we know slavery.
All right, let's talk about some slavery.
Well, hold on.
Okay,
They,
it's not cheerful, but
I think,
Mohammed kind of like, he established it, but then he was like, but there's some rules that the limits to how you treat them.
Ah.
treated like equal.
good. Yeah, establish better treatment. And we're going to see one thing, though, is that you have the ideal and then you have the real. So, for example, we're not saying, much like Greece and Romans, in Greece, Rome, and later on the Ottoman Empire, you could be a very wealthy slave who was richer than governors and have like families and all these things, but it wasn't the norm. For example, if you were like on a enslaved and you're put to a mine, or if you're captured by pirates and made to be one of the guys who rows the boats, your life was very, very bad and short. Yes,
Can I add something to the women slaves?
go right ahead.
They were mainly looked down and degraded upon from society.
Yeah, that's true. So exactly, it was not a point of pride. So you're right. So you can't say that in all cases. And you remember this, like you can think of it like as a class-based society. So at the top, you would have people who were wealthy, and you were Muslim. Then you had poor Muslim, and then you had people of different religions, like the Dini, the Jews, and the Christians. And then below that, you would have like enslaved people, right? And that's not to mention the distinction between male and female too, right? So then once again, the whole paradigm shifts over again. So, but compared to how the Middle East was before this, they were seen largely as an improvement. So, by modern standards. So let me get a picture of this for you. Good job there, everybody. Good job. Hey, what I'm about to do is I'm going to put the notes on the Google Classroom. And I'm also going to put these Quizlet sets on the Google Classroom as well. But otherwise, we're going to talk about the next 2 chapters. They're about the Norse. So that's going to be chapters 33 and 34 tomorrow. And our quiz is on Thursday. So make sure you study your notes. I'm going to put it all on Google Classroom. Talk to you later, kids. All right. So